Did you ever wonder how many toxic 1980s household items we lived with that are now banned? These household items sat in kitchens, bedrooms, and backyards without anyone suspecting the dangers hiding inside. What invisible threats were quietly building up in the places we called home? Lead-painted wooden Venetian blinds hung in bedroom windows and living room bays throughout the 1980s. Elegant fixtures nobody questioned or worried about. Families tilted the slats to let morning light in or shut them tight against afternoon sun, never realizing every tug of the cord released toxic dust into the air. The lead in the paint made finishes durable and resistant to chipping, which manufacturers advertised as a selling point for busy households. Children pressed their faces against the slats to peek outside, running fingers along painted surfaces while parents called them to dinner. Over time, the paint degraded invisibly, shedding particles onto windowsills, carpets, and the hands of everyone who touched them. Researchers eventually connected these blinds to alarming blood lead levels in children, prompting urgent recalls and immediate regulatory action. Families were stunned to learn something so ordinary had been contaminating their homes for years. The bans arrived swiftly once evidence mounted, forcing manufacturers to reformulate and homeowners to replace what they had trusted. Today, those vintage blinds serve as a quiet reminder that danger sometimes hangs in plain sight. Asbestos-lined toaster ovens were considered modern marvels in the 1980s, compact appliances that made morning routines faster and kitchens more efficient. The insulation inside kept exteriors cool while interiors heated quickly, a feature that seemed clever for busy families. People used them daily for toast, bagels, and frozen snacks, never imagining the material keeping everything safe from burns was releasing microscopic fibers into their kitchens. Asbestos resisted heat so well that manufacturers tucked it into appliances without hesitation. People leaned over these toaster ovens while waiting for food, breathing warm air that carried particles no one could see. When scientists confirmed the link between asbestos exposure and devastating lung diseases, the industry shifted almost overnight. Recalls swept through stores, and families were urged to discard toaster ovens they had trusted for years. The realization stung because something designed to make life easier had been quietly introducing harm into the home. Today, those old toaster ovens remind us that convenience can mask dangers hiding just beneath the surface. Mercury-filled tilt switches inside wall thermostats were the silent heartbeat of temperature control in 1980s homes, clicking softly whenever furnaces kicked on or air conditioning started humming. Inside each small glass capsule was a bead of liquid mercury that rolled back and forth, completing the electrical circuit that kept families comfortable. People adjusted these thermostats daily without knowing they were handling devices containing one of the most toxic heavy metals on Earth. If a thermostat broke during replacement, that tiny mercury bead could spill onto floors and vents, vaporizing slowly into the air for years. Families breathed it in without realizing the source, and children sometimes played with the shiny liquid if they found it. Once scientists documented how mercury accumulated in bodies and damaged nervous systems, regulators moved quickly to phase out these switches. Homeowners were urged to dispose of them through hazardous waste programs. The ban brought safer digital alternatives, but the memory of those toxic capsules lingers as a warning about comfort and danger sharing the same wall. Formaldehyde-treated plywood kitchen cabinets lined the walls of countless homes in the 1980s, their smooth surfaces and affordable prices making them popular for families upgrading cooking spaces. The glue holding wood layers together contained formaldehyde resins that cured slowly over months, releasing invisible gas into kitchens where families spent hours each day. People cooked meals, ate breakfast, and helped children with homework while breathing fumes they could not smell at low concentrations. Some families noticed headaches, irritated eyes, or persistent coughs without connecting symptoms to their new cabinets. The formaldehyde levels were highest when cabinets were new, but off-gassing continued for years, especially in warm kitchens where windows stayed closed. When researchers published findings linking chronic exposure to respiratory illness and cancer risks, the construction industry faced immediate pressure. Regulators set strict limits on formaldehyde emissions, forcing manufacturers to reformulate adhesives entirely. Families who had proudly remodeled their kitchens wondered what they had been breathing. Those cabinets became symbols of how progress can poison the spaces meant to nourish us. Chlordane-soaked termite barriers were installed beneath foundations throughout the 1980s as the ultimate defense against wood-destroying insects. Pest control companies promised decades of protection, saturating soil with chemicals so persistent that termites would never tunnel through. Homeowners trusted these invisible shields completely, believing their investment would keep structural damage at bay forever. What nobody explained was that chlordane does not simply stay underground. It migrates slowly upward through cracks in concrete, through gaps around pipes, and through air circulating beneath floors. Families lived above these chemical pools for years, breathing vapors that accumulated inside tightly sealed houses designed to conserve energy. Children played on carpets directly over treated soil, and basements carried faint chemical odors people dismissed as normal. When researchers linked chlordane exposure to neurological damage and cancer risks, regulators banned it entirely for residential use. Homeowners were left wondering what had been seeping into their homes for years. Today, chlordane barriers remain troubling examples of how protection can turn into contamination without anyone noticing. Lead-glazed ceramic coffee mugs sat proudly in kitchen cupboards throughout the 1980s, their colorful finishes and handcrafted charm making them favorites for morning rituals. Many came from overseas markets or craft fairs where artisans used traditional glazing techniques passed down through generations. What nobody realized was that lead in those beautiful glazes slowly dissolved into hot acidic beverages like coffee and citrus juice. Every morning sip delivered invisible doses of a neurotoxin that accumulated in bones and bloodstreams over time. Families collected these mugs as souvenirs and everyday essentials, never suspecting the vessel holding their comfort drink carried serious risk. Children drank hot cocoa from colorful cups, absorbing lead at levels that affected developing brains severely. When testing revealed dangerously high lead content in imported ceramics, regulators cracked down on manufacturing standards. Many beloved mugs were quietly discarded once families understood the truth. The ban protected future generations, but those who spent years drinking from contaminated cups wondered what damage had accumulated. It remains a reminder that beauty and danger sometimes share the same glaze. Polychlorinated biphenyl filled fluorescent light ballasts hummed quietly in ceilings throughout the 1980s, providing steady illumination in kitchens, basements, and garages without drawing attention. The ballasts regulated electrical current to keep tubes flickering evenly, and the PCB oil inside helped dissipate heat while preventing fires. Families rarely thought about what was hidden inside metal housings bolted above their heads. But when ballasts aged and overheated, they often leaked, dripping oily residue onto surfaces below without anyone noticing. Some leaked slowly for years, creating invisible contamination zones on countertops, shelves, and floors. The PCBs did not evaporate easily. They clung to dust particles and spread through ventilation systems, accumulating in carpets throughout the home. When scientists confirmed that PCBs caused cancer and disrupted hormones, the manufacturing ban was swift, but millions of ballasts already installed remained in place. Families discovered the danger only when fixtures failed or during renovations. Cleanup required specialized procedures and protective equipment. Today, those old ballasts stand as proof that even simple overhead lights can harbor secrets. Asbestos-backed vinyl floor tiles covered kitchens, bathrooms, and basements in countless 1980s homes, their durability and affordability making them the go-to choice for practical families. The tiles came in cheerful patterns that brightened rooms, and they resisted water, stains, and heavy foot traffic better than almost anything available. Hidden beneath the colorful surface was a layer of asbestos backing that gave tiles their famous strength. Families walked across these floors barefoot, mopped them weekly, and never imagined the material underfoot could be dangerous. The asbestos remained stable as long as tiles stayed intact, but scratching, cracking, or removal released microscopic fibers into the air. Homeowners who pulled up old flooring themselves often did so without masks, inhaling clouds of invisible particles. When health risks of asbestos became undeniable, regulations required professional abatement and safe disposal. Many families discovered their floors were hazardous only when preparing to sell or remodel their homes. The cheerful tiles that seemed so practical now required expensive removal procedures. They remain a stark reminder that danger sometimes lies directly beneath our feet. Carbon tetrachloride spot removers were tucked under laundry room sinks and inside cleaning closets throughout the 1980s, trusted solutions for stubborn stains nothing else could touch. The liquid worked almost magically on grease, ink, and mysterious marks on clothing, carpets, and upholstery. Families kept bottles handy, dabbing the clear solvent onto fabric and watching stains dissolve before their eyes. What nobody explained was that carbon tetrachloride converts to poison gas when it evaporates, and using it in poorly ventilated spaces could lead to dizziness, unconsciousness, or worse. People knelt over treated carpets, leaned into closets where freshly cleaned garments hung, and breathed deeply without knowing the risk. Some homeowners used it in enclosed bathrooms where air barely circulated. Emergency rooms saw poisoning cases difficult to diagnose because the source seemed ordinary. When regulators understood how dangerous this common cleaner was, the bans came quickly and permanently. Families discarded bottles they had relied on for years, aware that their stain fighter had been threatening their health. Today, carbon tetrachloride remains banned, a relic from when cleaning solutions could kill. Cadmium pigmented orange Fiestaware sat in china cabinets and on dinner tables throughout the 1980s, its bold radioactive orange glaze making it a beloved collector's item and everyday dinnerware. The color came from cadmium sulfide and selenium compounds that gave the finish its characteristic brightness, a vibrancy no other pigment could match. Families served holiday meals and children's snacks on these plates without knowing the glaze was not stable. Acidic foods like tomato sauce and citrus fruits slowly leached cadmium from the surface, delivering invisible doses of toxic heavy metal with every bite. Collectors displayed pieces proudly, unaware that handling them transferred contamination to hands that later touched food. When testing revealed vintage orange Fiestaware could expose users to dangerous cadmium levels, the original formula was discontinued and warnings spread through collector communities. Many families packed away dishes they had cherished for generations, uncertain whether to keep them or dispose of them. The bright orange plates became symbols of how beauty and toxicity share the same glaze. Today, they serve as colorful reminders that even cheerful dinnerware can hide dangers. Pentachlorophenol treated wooden decks stretched across backyards throughout the 1980s, sturdy platforms where families gathered for barbecues and summer afternoons. The chemical treatment promised decades of protection against rot and insects, making it the preferred choice for homeowners wanting outdoor spaces that would last. What nobody explained was that pentachlorophenol seeps slowly to the surface, especially in hot weather, creating invisible residue that transferred to bare feet and hands. Children ran across these decks without shoes, sat on warm planks, and played for hours without anyone suspecting danger. The chemical absorbed through skin and accumulated in bodies over time, causing effects researchers would later link to serious health concerns. When regulators discovered the scope of the problem, residential use was banned, and homeowners were urged to seal or replace treated lumber. Many families who had spent years enjoying their decks faced difficult choices about structures they had built with pride. Today, those old decks remain a reminder that the places where we relax can carry risks we never imagined. Lead solder and copper water pipes ran through the walls of countless 1980s homes, carrying drinking water from municipal systems to kitchen faucets and bathroom sinks. Plumbers used lead-based solder because it melted easily, sealed joints tightly, and had been the industry standard for generations. Nobody questioned whether the material touching water supply might affect what families drank and cooked with every day. The lead leached slowly into water flowing past, especially in homes with slightly acidic water or pipes that sat unused overnight. Families filled glasses, made coffee, prepared baby formula, and cooked pasta without knowing invisible contamination accompanied every drop. When researchers connected household lead exposure to developmental problems in children, the plumbing industry faced a reckoning. Regulations banned lead solder for drinking water systems, but millions of homes already had it in their walls. Some families discovered the problem only after testing revealed elevated lead levels. Today, those soldered joints remain hidden inside walls, a quiet reminder that even clean water can carry dangers nobody thought to question. Benzene-based rubber cement was a staple in craft rooms and home offices throughout the 1980s, its distinctive sweet smell filling the air whenever someone worked on scrapbooks or school projects. The adhesive spread smoothly, dried quickly, and created bonds that held paper together perfectly. Families kept jars in desk drawers and anywhere creative projects might happen. Children used it freely for homework and art class creations, often leaning close to watch glue spread across construction paper. What nobody realized was that benzene evaporates readily at room temperature, filling enclosed spaces with fumes that entered lungs with every breath. Parents helped kids with projects in small bedrooms where ventilation was poor and exposure was high. When scientists confirmed that benzene caused blood cancers and serious health problems, formulations changed almost overnight. Manufacturers switched to safer solvents and old jars disappeared from store shelves. Families who had spent years crafting together understood that the familiar smell they associated with creativity had been quietly dangerous. Today, benzene-based rubber cement remains banned, a reminder that innocent hobbies can carry hidden risks. Tris flame retardant couch cushions filled living rooms across the country throughout the 1980s, their chemically treated foam promising protection against accidental fires. Manufacturers sprayed cushions with Tris compounds to slow flames, giving families extra seconds to escape in emergencies. Parents felt reassured knowing their furniture met safety standards. What nobody explained was that Tris chemicals migrated to the surface and transferred to skin, clothing, and anything touching cushions. Children napped on these couches, wrestled on cushions, and pressed faces into fabric carrying invisible chemical residue. Families spent evenings watching television, unaware their furniture was slowly releasing compounds later linked to cancer and reproductive harm. When researchers published findings connecting TRI's exposure to serious health effects, the furniture industry scrambled for alternatives. Regulations banned the most dangerous formulations, but countless treated cushions remained in homes for years. Many families never knew their beloved couches carried risks outlasting the furniture itself. Today, those old cushions serve as a reminder that safety features can introduce dangers of their own. Chlorofluorocarbon aerosol air fresheners sat on bathroom shelves and kitchen counters throughout the 1980s. Their pressurized cans promising instant freshness with every spray. Families used them liberally after cooking and whenever rooms needed a quick refresh. The hiss of aerosol became familiar, followed by clouds of scented mist settling onto every surface. People sprayed directly into air they were breathing, trusting anything sold for household use must be safe. What nobody understood was that chlorofluorocarbons drifted upward through the atmosphere, accumulating in layers that would eventually damage the ozone layer protecting Earth from harmful radiation. Closer to home, the propellants irritated lungs, especially in small bathrooms where ventilation was poor. When scientists discovered the environmental catastrophe unfolding overhead, bans came quickly and globally. Manufacturers reformulated products, and CFC propellants vanished from consumer goods entirely. Families who had spent years freshening their homes learned they had been contributing to planetary damage with every casual spray. Today, those old aerosol cans represent an era when convenience outweighed consequences nobody understood. Arsenic-treated green playground equipment stood in backyards throughout the 1980s, sturdy wooden swing sets and climbing structures where children spent countless hours playing. The lumber was pressure-treated with chromated copper arsenate, a preservative giving wood its distinctive greenish tint and promising protection against rot for decades. Parents invested in these structures believing they were providing safe outdoor entertainment that would last through childhood. What nobody explained was that arsenic leaches slowly to the surface, especially as wood ages, creating invisible residue on every plank and beam. Children gripped swing chains, climbed ladders, and slid down boards that left traces of arsenic on their hands. Those same hands touched faces, food, and mouths throughout long summer days of play. When researchers documented the extent of arsenic exposure from treated lumber, regulators banned its residential use. Many families faced difficult decisions about playground equipment they had assembled with pride. Today, those old wooden structures serve as reminders that places built for joy can harbor dangers nobody suspected. Urea formaldehyde particle board furniture filled bedrooms and home offices throughout the 1980s, its affordability making it the practical choice for families furnishing homes on budgets. The pressed wood looked clean and modern, and stores sold millions of desks and bookshelves made from the material. People assembled these pieces in spare rooms, proud to create functional spaces without emptying savings. What nobody realized was that glue-binding wood particles released formaldehyde gas continuously, especially when furniture was new. Bedrooms where children slept and offices where parents worked filled slowly with invisible fumes. Some people noticed headaches, irritated eyes, or coughs without connecting symptoms to new furniture. The off-gassing continued for months, particularly in warm rooms where windows stayed closed. When researchers confirmed chronic formaldehyde exposure caused respiratory illness and cancer risks, regulations tightened emission standards dramatically. Families who had furnished entire homes with affordable particle board wondered what they had been breathing. Today, that old furniture serves as a reminder that budget-friendly choices can carry costs nobody sees until later. Lead-core wick-scented candles flickered in living rooms and bathrooms throughout the 1980s, their warm glow and pleasant fragrances creating atmosphere for dinners and quiet evenings. The wicks contained thin metal cores that helped them stand upright and burn evenly, a design feature that seemed purely practical. Families lit these candles during holidays and ordinary weeknights when soft light felt more inviting than harsh overhead bulbs. What nobody realized was that metal cores in many imported candles contained lead, which vaporized into air as wicks burned. Every hour a candle flickered released invisible lead particles that settled onto furniture, floors, and lungs of everyone nearby. Children sleeping in rooms where candles had burned inhaled contaminated air without anyone suspecting danger. When researchers tested air quality in homes using these candles, lead levels shocked them. Regulators banned lead-core wicks, and manufacturers switched to safer materials. Families who spent years enjoying candlelit evenings learned the cozy atmosphere they loved had been quietly contaminating their homes. Today, those old candles remain a reminder that even gentle light can cast dangerous shadows. Mercury vapor sun lamps for tanning hung in bathrooms and bedrooms throughout the 1980s, glowing fixtures promising year-round bronze skin without expensive salon visits. Families installed them above mirrors or in tanning corners, believing they had brought professional beauty treatments into their homes. People stood beneath these lamps for minutes at a time, exposing faces and bodies to ultraviolet radiation they could feel warming their skin. What nobody understood was that mercury vapor lamps produced intense UV radiation far exceeding safe limits, and mercury inside posed hazards if bulbs shattered. Eyes suffered damage from unshielded exposure, and skin absorbed radiation doses that accumulated with every session. Some people developed burns and conditions revealing their consequences years later. When researchers documented dangers of unregulated UV exposure and mercury risks, home tanning lamps faced strict regulations. Many models were pulled from stores entirely. Families who spent years chasing golden tans learned they had been exposing themselves to radiation nobody should absorb casually. Today, those old sun lamps remain a reminder that beauty trends can carry costs becoming clear only with time. Polybrominated diphenyl ether-coated television casings dominated living rooms throughout the 1980s. Flame-retardant chemicals sprayed onto plastic housings surrounding cathode ray tubes generating significant heat. Manufacturers added these compounds to meet fire safety standards, believing they were protecting families from television fires. The bulky sets became centerpieces of home entertainment, running for hours each day while families gathered to watch programs. What nobody explained was that PBDEs slowly release into household air as fine dust settling onto furniture, carpets, and skin. Children playing on floors near televisions inhaled and ingested these particles regularly. The chemicals accumulated in bodies over time, building to levels researchers would later connect to thyroid disruption and developmental delays. When scientists documented the scope of PBDE contamination in homes and human tissue, regulations began phasing out dangerous compounds. Families who had spent years watching television together learned their entertainment centers had been quietly releasing toxic dust. Today, those old television casings serve as a reminder that fire safety and chemical safety do not always align. Creosote-soaked railroad tie garden borders lined flower beds and vegetable patches throughout the 1980s, their rugged appearance and low cost making them popular for durable landscaping. The heavy timbers looked rustic, and people believed they were repurposing industrial materials cleverly. What nobody explained was that creosote is a thick preservative containing hundreds of chemical compounds, many known carcinogens. The substance leaches slowly into surrounding soil, contaminating ground where families planted tomatoes and herbs they later ate. Children playing near borders got sticky residue on their hands without anyone realizing the danger. The chemical smell that seemed like outdoor character was a warning sign everyone ignored. When researchers documented soil contamination from creosote-treated wood, regulators restricted its residential use. Families who had bordered their gardens faced difficult choices about removing timbers embedded in landscapes they had cultivated for years. Today, those old railroad ties remain a stark reminder that rustic charm can mask serious contamination. Lead-weighted vinyl window shades hung in bedrooms and nurseries throughout the 1980s, their smooth rolling action and affordable prices making them standard fixtures. The lead strips sewn into bottom hems helped shades hang straight and roll evenly, a practical feature that seemed purely functional. Parents installed them in children's rooms without questioning what kept the fabric taut. What nobody realized was that vinyl deteriorates over time, especially in sunlight, releasing particles including lead dust from weighted hems. Children touched these shades constantly, pulling them up and down, pressing faces against them, and sometimes chewing on dangling cords and fabric edges. The lead transferred to small hands that later touched food, toys, and mouths. When researchers tested older vinyl shades and found alarming lead levels, regulators moved to ban lead weights in window coverings. Families discovered the danger only after years of exposure in rooms meant to protect their children. Today, those old shades serve as reminders that simple window treatments can carry hidden risks nobody thought to question. Hexachlorobenzene treated woolens sat folded in closets and storage chests throughout the 1980s, the moth-proofing chemical promising to protect sweaters and coats from insect damage during long storage. Families trusted these treatments because moth holes in favorite garments felt preventable. The chemical worked by making fabrics toxic to insects, but it did not stay in the fibers. It off-gassed into enclosed spaces and transferred to skin whenever treated items were worn. People pulled sweaters over their heads, wrapped themselves in treated blankets, and bundled children in coats carrying invisible residue. The protection against moths came with exposure to a compound later linked to liver damage and cancer risks. When researchers documented the dangers of hexachlorobenzene, regulations restricted its use and safer alternatives replaced it. Families had spent years wearing treated clothing without any idea they were absorbing harmful chemicals through skin. Today, those old moth-proofing treatments serve as a reminder that protecting belongings can mean exposing people to dangers nobody anticipated. Tributyl painted basement walls gleamed with waterproof coatings throughout the 1980s, the chemical promising to keep moisture from seeping through concrete. Homeowners applied these paints during weekend projects, brushing thick coatings onto walls without protective masks. Basements transformed from musty storage spaces into usable rooms where families set up playrooms and entertainment areas. What nobody explained was that tributyl releases slowly into indoor air, especially in enclosed spaces with limited ventilation. Families breathed these fumes during movie nights and play without realizing the compound was an endocrine disruptor capable of interfering with hormones. Children spending time in finished basements absorbed the chemical at higher rates. When researchers connected tributyl exposure to developmental and reproductive concerns, regulations banned it from consumer paints. Families who had waterproofed their basements learned they had been breathing harmful fumes for years. Today, those old coatings remind us that dry walls are not worth much if the solution contaminates the air. Chromated copper arsenate picnic tables stood in backyards throughout the 1980s, their greenish-tinted wood promising decades of outdoor durability for family gatherings and barbecues. The pressure-treated lumber resisted rot and insects so effectively that it became standard for any outdoor furniture meant to last. Families ate countless meals on these surfaces, setting plates directly on wood containing arsenic as a preservative. Children sat on benches with bare legs, rested arms on tabletops, and carved initials into surfaces, leaving residue on their skin. Nobody thought to wash hands before eating food placed where arsenic could transfer. The compound leached from wood over time, especially as surfaces weathered and splinters broke free. When researchers documented arsenic levels on treated lumber and exposure risks they created, regulators banned CCA for residential use. Families who had gathered around these tables questioned what they had been touching and ingesting. Today, those old picnic tables serve as stark reminders that places where families break bread can harbor dangers taking years to understand. Tang was the drink that made every child feel like an astronaut, the bright orange powder that transformed ordinary water into something that tasted like adventure itself. Mothers stirred it into pitchers, poured it into thermoses, and sent their children off believing they were providing something fun and refreshing. The marketing was brilliant, tying the drink to exploration, science, and the excitement of the future. But behind that cheerful orange glow was a list of artificial colors that would later raise serious questions about what children were consuming. Red dye, yellow dye, and other synthetic colorants gave Tang its signature brightness, and families never stopped to wonder what those chemicals might do once swallowed. Studies eventually connected artificial dyes to hyperactivity, attention issues, and behavioral concerns in children, prompting other countries to require warning labels or outright bans. American regulators moved more slowly, leaving parents to make decisions without the full picture. Today, the idea of sending a child to school with a thermos full of artificially colored sugar water feels like a relic from a time when trust in manufacturers outweighed caution. Ethylene dibromide fumigated flour sat in pantries and bakery stockrooms across the country during the 1980s, quietly contaminating bread, cakes, cookies, and pastries that families trusted as perfectly safe. The chemical was used to fumigate stored grain, killing insects and preventing infestations that could ruin entire harvests. Farmers and processors saw it as essential protection, a modern solution to ancient problems of spoilage and pest damage. Nobody thought twice about what happened when fumigated grains were milled into flour and shipped to grocery stores. But ethylene dibromide did not simply vanish during processing. Residues remained in finished products, and researchers discovered the chemical was a confirmed carcinogen capable of causing serious harm with repeated exposure. When the EPA banned the fumigant, the announcement sent ripples through the entire grain industry. Bakers, millers, and consumers questioned everything on their shelves. It was a jarring reminder that contamination can travel invisibly from field to fork, and that even bread, the most basic food, could carry dangers nobody saw coming. Enriched white bread was the nutritional cornerstone of the American diet in the 1970s, sitting in nearly every bread box and toasted in nearly every kitchen across the country. Families believed they were getting wholesome nourishment with every sandwich, every piece of toast, and every slice served alongside dinner. The packaging boasted about added vitamins and minerals, making it seem like this soft, fluffy bread was actually good for growing bodies. Children ate peanut butter and jelly on it, mothers made French toast with it, and nobody questioned whether something so familiar could possibly be anything less than healthy. The truth was far more complicated than those cheerful labels suggested. White bread started as whole wheat, but milling stripped away the fiber-rich bran and nutrient-dense germ, leaving behind starchy flour with almost no nutritional value. Manufacturers then sprayed synthetic vitamins back onto the depleted flour and called it enriched, as if adding back a fraction of what was removed made it healthy. The result spiked blood sugar, provided minimal fiber, and filled bellies with empty calories disguised as nutrition. White bread in the 1970s was the foundation of nearly every packed lunch, soft and pillowy and perfectly sliced to hold whatever filling a mother decided her child needed that day. Nobody questioned what made it so fluffy, so uniform, or so reliably spongy compared to the denser loaves of earlier generations. Families trusted the brands they saw on television, believing that mass production meant quality and safety. But many of those beloved loaves contained potassium bromate, a chemical additive that helped strengthen the dough and create that signature airy texture. Bakers loved it because it made bread rise higher and look more appealing on store shelves. What families did not know was that potassium bromate had been linked to kidney damage and other health issues in laboratory studies conducted far from cheerful kitchens. Other countries eventually banned it entirely, recognizing the risks that American regulators were slower to address. Today, it is jarring to realize that the soft white bread cradling a child's sandwich once contained a compound many nations refuse to allow near food production. Raw milk sold openly in grocery stores felt like a wholesome throwback during the 1980s, something that connected modern families to simpler dairy traditions their grandparents knew. Cartons sat beside pasteurized options, marketed as more natural, more nutritious, and closer to the way milk was meant to be consumed. Health enthusiasts praised its enzymes and unprocessed purity, believing heat treatment destroyed things that made milk beneficial. Families poured it over cereal, gave it to children, and used it in recipes without imagining any threat lurking inside. But raw milk carried bacteria that pasteurization was designed to destroy, including Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria, organisms capable of causing severe illness or death. Outbreaks linked to unpasteurized dairy mounted as families fell sick, some suffering permanent damage while others did not survive. State after state began banning retail sales, and federal regulators prohibited raw milk from crossing state lines. The drink that symbolized natural living became a public health battleground. Today, it remains illegal in most places, a reminder that tradition and safety do not always walk together. Liquid protein diets swept through the 1970s like wildfire, promising rapid weight loss for anyone desperate enough to replace real meals with a few ounces of flavored liquid. Doctors recommended them, celebrities endorsed them, and millions of Americans skipped breakfast, lunch, and dinner in favor of bottles that claimed to deliver all the nutrition a body could need. People lost weight fast, sometimes 20 or 30 pounds in weeks, and the medical establishment treated it as a breakthrough. Dietary mixed powders into shakes, sipped prepackaged formulas, and watched the numbers on the scale plummet with pride and hunger. What nobody realized until the bodies started piling up was that these liquid diets were nutritionally catastrophic. The protein came from low-quality sources like collagen, lacking essential amino acids the heart desperately needed. Dieters developed fatal heart arrhythmias, collapsing without warning as their bodies gave out. By the time the FDA investigated, nearly 60 deaths had been linked to these products. The weight loss miracle that promised a new body instead delivered tragedy to families who trusted science that was never properly tested. Bologna sandwiches were the cornerstone of almost every lunchbox in the 1970s, slapped between two slices of soft white bread with a smear of mustard and wrapped in wax paper like a tiny gift. Mothers packed them believing they were giving their children something filling, affordable, and perfectly wholesome. The pink meat looked cheerful, tasted familiar, and satisfied hungry kids who never questioned what made it so conveniently uniform. But hidden inside every slice was a cocktail of sodium nitrates and nitrites, preservatives that gave the meat its rosy color and extended shelf life far beyond what nature intended. People trusted the packaging and the brand names without hesitation. What nobody talked about was how those preservatives, once inside the body, could transform into compounds researchers would later link to serious health concerns. By the time science caught up, generations of children had consumed countless sandwiches made from meat that carried risks no parent ever imagined. It is unsettling to think that something so trusted could have quietly posed a danger, hiding in plain sight. Red dye number 3 colored the candies, cereals, and desserts of the 1980s in shades of bright cherry and festive pink that children adored without hesitation. It made maraschino cherries glow atop ice cream sundaes, turned fruit snacks into jewel-toned treats, and gave holiday cookies their signature festive look. Parents bought these products without a second thought, assuming anything sold on grocery shelves must be safe. But researchers discovered something troubling when laboratory studies connected the dye to thyroid tumors in animals, raising alarm about what it might do inside human bodies. The FDA banned red dye number 3 from cosmetics, yet the additive lingered in certain foods under older approvals that seemed impossible to untangle. Families who remembered eating handfuls of those bright red candies began questioning what else slipped past safety checks. The controversy sparked lasting debates about artificial colors in the food supply. Looking back, those vivid reds and pinks carry a complicated legacy, a symbol of an era when color mattered more than caution and danger hid behind cheerful packaging. Margarine was sold as the heart-healthy miracle spread that would save American families from the dangers of butter, and in the 1970s, nearly every kitchen had a tub of it sitting in the refrigerator door. Doctors recommended it, nutritionists endorsed it, and advertisements showed happy families spreading it on toast with the confidence that they were making a smart, modern choice. People genuinely believed that switching from butter to margarine would protect their hearts and keep them healthier for decades to come. The spread was cheap, it melted smoothly, and it came in bright yellow packaging that made it look wholesome and natural. What nobody understood was that margarine was loaded with trans fats, artificially created through hydrogenation that turned liquid oils into solid spreads. These trans fats did not protect hearts at all. Instead, they clogged arteries, raised bad cholesterol, and increased the risk of heart disease far more than the butter they were meant to replace. Decades later, researchers would call trans fats one of the most dangerous ingredients ever introduced into the American food supply. Hostess fruit pies were the sugary treasures that turned an ordinary lunchbox into something worth bragging about on the playground. Kids loved peeling back the cellophane to reveal those golden crusts dusted with glaze, filled with gooey apple, cherry, or lemon filling that tasted like pure happiness. Parents bought them believing they were harmless treats, small rewards tucked beside the sandwich and carrot sticks. The pies seemed innocent, but inside their flaky shells lurked partially hydrogenated oils, the laboratory creation that gave processed foods their long shelf life and satisfying texture. Nobody warned families that these oils were loaded with trans fats, the kind that clogged arteries, raised bad cholesterol, and contributed to heart disease in ways scientists would only fully understand decades later. Mothers who packed these pies with love had no idea they were handing their children something that slowly chipped away at cardiovascular health. When regulators finally moved to ban trans fats, these pies became relics of a different era. Looking back, it is troubling to realize that a treat meant to bring joy carried consequences that took years to surface. Sulfite-preserved restaurant salad bars were the crown jewels of casual dining in the 1980s. Those long, gleaming counters overflowing with crisp lettuce, vegetables, and toppings that seemed impossibly fresh. Families lined up with plates in hand, thrilled by endless variety and the illusion of healthy eating. What diners did not realize was that many restaurants sprayed produce with sulfite solutions to keep everything looking vibrant long past its natural shelf life. The chemicals stopped browning and allowed vegetables to sit under heat lamps for hours without wilting. It seemed like a miracle of food science. But sulfites triggered severe reactions in certain people, especially those with asthma, causing breathing difficulties and, in tragic cases, death. Reports of allergic emergencies mounted until regulators could no longer ignore the pattern. The FDA banned sulfite sprays on fresh fruits and vegetables served raw, forcing restaurants to rethink salad bar practices entirely. That gleaming buffet of the past carries a shadow most people never knew existed, a reminder that freshness can sometimes be a dangerous illusion. MSG-laden canned soups lined the shelves of every grocery store in the 1970s, marketed as wholesome, convenient meals that busy families could trust to nourish their loved ones. Mothers heated them on cold afternoons, packed them in thermoses for school lunches, and served them alongside sandwiches with complete confidence that they were providing something nutritious. The labels showed pictures of fresh vegetables and steaming bowls that promised comfort in every spoonful. Families had no idea that the savory flavor they loved came from monosodium glutamate, a chemical flavor enhancer quietly stirring controversy in medical circles. Reports surfaced of people experiencing headaches, flushing, numbness, and heart palpitations after eating foods high in MSG. Researchers called it Chinese restaurant syndrome at first, but symptoms appeared wherever MSG was heavily used, including those trusted cans sitting in American pantries. The industry insisted the additive was safe, but doubt had taken root. Parents who once felt proud of their quick meals began questioning what else might be hiding behind those reassuring labels. Deviled ham spread was one of those pantry staples that every family seemed to keep tucked behind the canned vegetables, ready to be slathered on crackers or bread whenever a quick lunch was needed. The little cans with their cheerful devil mascot promised something savory, easy, and perfectly portable for a child's lunchbox. Mothers scooped it out without hesitation, spreading it across sandwiches and believing it was a harmless protein source that kept well and tasted good enough to satisfy picky eaters. But the ingredient list told a different story, one loaded with sodium nitrite and preservatives designed to keep the meat looking pink long after it had been sealed inside that tiny metal container. People trusted these products because they had been around for generations, because grandmothers had served them. Researchers eventually connected sodium nitrite to compounds linked to cancer risks, casting a shadow over products once considered wholesome. The truth arrived slowly, filtering through scientific journals before reaching kitchen tables where the damage had already been done. It is unsettling to think that a spread so familiar quietly carried risks that took decades to understand. Des-treated beef and veal arrived on dinner tables across the country during the 1980s without anyone suspecting the danger hidden inside every tender bite. Diethylstilbestrol was a synthetic hormone implanted in cattle to accelerate growth, helping animals bulk up faster and reach market weight with less feed. Ranchers loved the efficiency, and consumers enjoyed lower prices without questioning how those savings were achieved. Families grilled steaks, roasted roasts, and served veal cutlets, believing they were providing wholesome protein. But DES had a horrifying history that should have raised alarms, because the same hormone given to pregnant women to prevent miscarriage caused devastating cancers in their children decades later. When researchers connected DES residues in meat to similar risks, shockwaves hit the agricultural industry. Regulators banned the hormone from livestock production, but damage to public confidence was immense. People looked at their freezers filled with beef and wondered what they had already consumed. It remains one of the clearest examples of how shortcuts in food production can carry consequences lasting for generations. Tab Cola was the glamorous diet drink of the 1970s, marketed directly to women who wanted to stay beautiful, thin, and modern without giving up their soda habit. The commercials practically glowed with images of slender models sipping from elegant glasses, promising that this bubbly pink can held the secret to effortless weight management. Women kept six-packs in the refrigerator, brought cans to work, and drank them poolside during summer barbecues, genuinely believing they were making the smart, health-conscious choice. The flavor was sharp, almost aggressively sweet, but loyal fans insisted it tasted like freedom from calorie counting. What the advertisements never mentioned was that Tab relied heavily on saccharin, the same artificial sweetener raising red flags in laboratories across the country. People drank can after can without knowing that each sip delivered chemicals whose long-term effects were far from understood. When cancer warning labels started appearing, loyal Tab drinkers faced an uncomfortable truth. The beverage they trusted to keep them slim had been quietly carrying risks nobody wanted to discuss. Kraft singles were the cheese slices that defined convenience in the 1970s. Each one wrapped in its own plastic sleeve and ready to be peeled apart and placed on sandwiches without any slicing or mess. Mothers loved how easy they made lunch preparation, how uniformly they melted on burgers, and how eagerly children accepted them. The bright orange squares looked like cheese, tasted like cheese, and fit perfectly on white bread alongside a slice of bologna. What families did not realize was that these slices were technically labeled as pasteurized prepared cheese product, a distinction that hinted at the heavy processing involved. Emulsifiers, sodium phosphates, and other additives helped achieve that perfectly smooth texture and unnaturally long shelf life. People trusted the familiar packaging without reading fine print that revealed how far these slices had traveled from actual cheese. Health debates later emerged about processed foods in childhood nutrition, but by then generations had grown up believing plastic-wrapped singles were normal. Today, those individually wrapped slices feel like a symbol of an era when convenience mattered more than questioning what made it possible. Brominated vegetable oil lurked inside the citrus-flavored sodas and fruit drinks of the 1980s, keeping bright colors evenly distributed instead of floating to the top like an oily film. The additive was originally developed as a flame retardant, a detail that seems almost impossible to believe given how casually it appeared in beverages marketed to children and families. Manufacturers valued it for keeping drinks looking consistent and appealing on store shelves. Kids guzzled orange sodas, lemon-lime concoctions, and fruity punches without any idea that a chemical designed to stop fires swirled through every sip. But bromine accumulates in the body, building up in fatty tissues and potentially causing neurological harm with prolonged exposure. When researchers raised alarms about long-term effects, regulators around the world took notice. Many countries banned brominated vegetable oil entirely, and major beverage companies eventually reformulated products under public pressure. The additive that once seemed like harmless convenience became one of the strangest examples of industrial chemicals finding their way into the food supply. Carnation Instant Breakfast was marketed as the perfect solution for busy mornings, a powdered drink mix that promised complete nutrition in a single glass of milk. Advertisements showed energetic families rushing out the door with smiles, confident that their quick breakfast was just as good as eggs, toast, and orange juice. Parents loved the convenience, kids loved the chocolate and vanilla flavors, and the product flew off shelves as modern life demanded faster solutions to traditional meals. The packaging emphasized protein, vitamins, and minerals, making it seem like a scientifically formulated health drink. What the cheerful marketing failed to mention was that Carnation Instant Breakfast was loaded with sugar, artificial flavors, and processed ingredients that had more in common with dessert than with actual breakfast. A single serving contained nearly as much sugar as a candy bar, dissolved into milk that families believed was nourishing their children. The vitamins were synthetic additions, not natural nutrients found in real food. Parents thought they were giving kids a healthy head start, but were actually beginning each day with a sugar rush disguised as modern nutrition. Kool-Aid was the magic powder that turned ordinary tap water into something sweet, colorful, and endlessly exciting for children who measured summer afternoons by how many glasses they could drink. The packets were cheap, the flavors endless, and the bright reds and purples made every glass look like a party waiting to happen. Mothers mixed it by the gallon, trusting that something so popular must be safe for growing children. But some of those vivid colors came from red dye number 2, a synthetic colorant that would become one of the most controversial food additives of the decade. Studies emerged suggesting potential links to cancer, prompting the FDA to ban the dye entirely in 1976. Families who had poured countless glasses of cherry Kool-Aid realized their children had been consuming something regulators now considered dangerous. The ban came after years of use, leaving parents to wonder how much exposure their families had accumulated. Today, the memory of those bright red drinks carries a shadow that cheerful packaging never hinted at. It is troubling to think that something tied to childhood joy contained a colorant deemed unfit for consumption. Aflatoxin-contaminated peanut butter sat in kitchen cabinets across the country during the 1980s, spreading invisibly onto sandwiches that children ate day after day. Aflatoxins are toxic compounds produced by mold that grows on peanuts, corn, and other crops, especially when storage conditions allow humidity to build. Back then, testing protocols were inconsistent, and contaminated batches slipped through quality control systems that had not yet caught up with the danger. Parents trusted peanut butter as wholesome protein, a lunchbox staple that kids loved and adults considered nutritious. Nobody examined jars for signs of contamination or questioned whether something so ordinary could carry real harm. But aflatoxins are among the most potent naturally occurring carcinogens known to science, capable of causing liver damage and cancer with repeated exposure. When outbreaks traced back to contaminated peanut products, regulators implemented strict testing requirements that transformed the industry. Today, peanut butter undergoes rigorous screening before reaching shelves. Those old jars represent an era when trust in familiar foods outweighed the caution we now know was always necessary. But slim-fast meal replacement shakes arrived in the late 1970s, promising a revolutionary approach to weight loss, a creamy shortcut that would help dieters shed pounds without counting calories or preparing complicated meals. The marketing was brilliant, featuring before and after photos that made dramatic transformation seem effortless. Women especially embraced these shakes, replacing breakfast and lunch with sweetened powder mixed into milk, believing they were taking control of their weight in a modern, scientific way. The packaging emphasized nutrition, listing vitamins and minerals that suggested this liquid meal was actually good for the body. What the cheerful advertisements glossed over was that these early formulas were nutritionally incomplete, loaded with sugar, and designed more for short-term results than long-term health. Dieters lost weight initially, then gained it back when they returned to real food. The shakes created a cycle of dependence and disappointment that kept customers buying more. The promise of a healthy solution turned out to be a processed product that taught an entire generation to fear real meals. Hot Twinkies were the golden sponge cakes that made lunchtime feel like a celebration, their creamy filling promising sweetness that balanced out the savory main course packed beside them. Children unwrapped them with anticipation, squeezing the soft cakes gently to watch the filling peek out before taking that first sugary bite. Mothers included them as treats, believing they were harmless indulgences that brought happiness to an ordinary school day. What families did not know was that the original recipe relied on beef tallow, rendered animal fat that gave the cakes their distinctive texture and extended their legendary shelf life. People assumed the filling was made from cream or something equally innocent, never imagining that animal byproducts played such a central role. The use of beef tallow was eventually phased out as health consciousness grew and manufacturers faced pressure to remove saturated animal fats. But for years, children consumed these cakes without any idea what gave them their signature softness. Looking back, it is strange to think that a treat associated with innocent childhood was built on an ingredient most families would have questioned if they had known. Potassium bromate bread rose high and golden in bakeries and home ovens throughout the 1980s, its perfect texture owing much to a chemical additive that made dough stronger and more elastic. Bakers loved how bromate improved rise, created finer crumb structure, and produced loaves that looked professionally crafted even from amateur kitchens. The additive became standard in commercial bread production, appearing in everything from sandwich loaves to hamburger buns without any indication on labels that consumers might want to know. Families ate this bread daily, trusting that anything sold so widely must be perfectly safe. But laboratory studies eventually connected potassium bromate to cancer in animals, raising serious questions about what it might do inside human bodies over years of consumption. Many countries banned the additive entirely, though it remained legal in the United States under the assumption that proper baking destroyed most of the chemical. The debate continues today, with many bakers choosing bromate-free recipes to avoid even theoretical risk. That perfect golden crust carries a complicated history few people ever learned. Powdered non-dairy coffee creamers were marketed as the lighter, more convenient alternative to real cream, and in the 1970s, they became a staple in break rooms, diners, and kitchen cabinets across the country. People loved the idea of a shelf-stable product that did not need refrigeration, lasted for months, and dissolved instantly into hot coffee with a satisfying swirl. The labels suggested something cleaner and more modern than heavy cream, appealing to health-conscious consumers who worried about dairy fat. Families kept jars of the powder beside the coffee maker, spooning it into cups morning after morning, without questioning what made it so unnaturally smooth. What those cheerful containers never revealed was that the creamy texture came from partially hydrogenated oils, the same trans fats that were quietly destroying hearts across America. Every cup of coffee lightened with this powder delivered a small dose of artificial fat that the body could not properly process. The convenience that seemed so modern was actually introducing toxins into the daily routines of millions who believed they were making a healthier choice. Peanut butter was the undisputed champion of the 1970s lunchbox, spread thick on bread and paired with jelly, honey, or eaten straight from the jar by children who could not wait until mealtime. Mothers trusted it as a reliable source of protein, something filling and affordable that even picky eaters would accept. The jars sat in pantries for months, their contents never separating, never spoiling, and always spreading smoothly no matter how long they had been open. That miraculous consistency came from partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, an ingredient that prevented the natural separation of peanut oil and solids. What nobody understood was that hydrogenation created trans fats, artificial compounds later blamed for clogged arteries, elevated cholesterol, and increased heart disease risk. Families consumed jar after jar, believing they were making healthy choices, never suspecting that the feature they loved was slowly contributing to cardiovascular damage. When the science emerged, the food industry scrambled to reformulate, but decades of damage had quietly accumulated. It is haunting to realize that the creamy comfort of childhood peanut butter came with a hidden cost. High-fructose corn syrup slipped into the American food supply during the 1970s, marketed as a natural sweetener derived from wholesome corn that could replace expensive cane sugar in everything from sodas to bread to baby food. Food manufacturers embraced it because it was cheap, easy to blend, and extended shelf life in ways that seemed miraculous. Families had no idea that this innocent-sounding ingredient appearing on more and more labels was anything other than a sensible alternative. The corn industry promoted it as a healthy choice, downplaying concerns with reassuring language about natural origins. What nobody anticipated was the metabolic chaos this sweetener would eventually unleash. Unlike regular sugar, high-fructose corn syrup is processed differently by the liver, contributing to fat accumulation, insulin resistance, and appetite disruption in ways researchers are still uncovering. Scientists would link the rise of obesity, diabetes, and fatty liver disease directly to this sweetener in processed foods. The natural ingredient that promised to make food better and cheaper instead helped fuel one of the worst public health crises in American history. If any of these forgotten household hazards stirred a memory or a shiver, share your story in the comments, tap like to help others discover the truth, and subscribe so you never miss the history hiding in your own home.